So this is our last week in the Upside Down Kingdom. I know we just played a crazy game, two crazy games. One with marshmallows and spaghetti noodles, and the other one where people were blindfolded. So the reason why we played these games, other than we're going, oh, this might be fun to do. But the reason why we play these games is because we're trying to illustrate a message. Now, this whole series has been about power and authority and what you can do with it, what people do with it, and ultimately what Jesus set the example as to what we're supposed to do with power and with authority. And we're talking about how Jesus came in and his kingdom was different, so much different from the world that it's upside down, right? And from the world's perspective, his kingdom is upside down. It doesn't make any sense because Jesus chose to use his power, right, to help other people, right? Not just to help himself, not just to be like, I'm Jesus, I'm God, this is like, it's all for my benefit. He did it for the benefit of others. So we're talking about power, we're talking about authority. And I, a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago now, I shared a story about a time when I was a fantasy football commissioner and I cheated to win the league. Yeah, it's not a great look, right? And that's we weren't good enough to win. So win naturally. So there's opportunities, okay, in your life where you will gain authority, you'll gain power. Right now, you may feel like you have no power, no authority, but even as a junior hire and as a high schooler, you get little opportunities of power and authority, right? Maybe you are some kind of leader on a team. Maybe you're like a captain. Maybe people will look at you. Maybe you're like first chair in band. Maybe you're some officer in a club that you're in, or maybe maybe you're just an older sibling, right? And younger siblings kind of have to do what you say sometimes because you're the oldest, and your parents kind of look to you and they go, hey, set the example. And sometimes in setting that example, there's a little bit of power, right? Because you can kind of tell them what to do. And what do you do with that power? What do you do with that authority? Because it's easy, right? And this is the whole reason we have this, the whole reason we do this series is because it's easy to let power go to our head, right? It's easy to do that. It's easy to say, hey, I'm going to use my power for personal gain. I'm going to use the position I have. I'm going to use whatever status I have for benefit, for my own benefit. And that can go to our head. We can kind of get into places where we're doing things that we never said we would do. Or maybe you always thought, oh yeah, I'm going to abuse power, right? But I don't think, maybe we don't start there, right? Because I don't know if you ever had this moment, because y'all are perfect little teenagers, right? Just kidding. No. Look for real. Think about this though. You've all had this moment where your parents do something or they have a rule and you don't like that rule, and then you think, well, when I'm a parent one day, I'm going to do things differently. Right? You go, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it differently. Or let's say maybe you work and you have a boss or you have a teacher and you don't like the rules that your boss or teacher or whatever has for their classroom. Hey guys, listen up. Okay? Maybe there's rules that you don't like. And you go, man, if I was ever in this position, I wouldn't have these rules. If I were in this position, I wouldn't tell people they had, because I feel like, this is maybe you have this thought. I feel like my teacher's abusing their power. Right? I feel like they're singling me out, they're abusing it. And you go, if I were ever in that position, I would be fair. Right? I would do only what's right, what's just. That's what I would do. We've all thought that, right? But and probably your teachers, your coaches, your future bosses, things like that, they've probably also all had that thought at some point in their life. But here they are in their position, and they're abusing their power, right? And so you sit there and you go, I don't want to be like that, right? I don't want to be that person. I don't want to have that rule. I don't want to be unfair. I want to be fair, which is great. I think you should want that, right? But when push comes to shove in our lives, we get to that point, we get some power, we get some authority, and at some point we go, well, maybe this time it's okay. Like if I did it this time, it would be all right. It would be okay. And so maybe you've been in those situations where you've had the opportunity to abuse power, you've had the opportunity to abuse authority. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I know that y'all are not adults yet. You haven't lived maybe in a situation where you've had that much power or authority. But you might find yourself in that situation, girls, one day, where you have that opportunity to abuse power or to abuse your authority. And so that's what we're talking about. That's why we talk about this story, is because there's going to be opportunities where you can choose to do the right thing or the wrong thing. So here's where we want to start. I want to start with a story from the New Testament. Well, not a story, but we see a passage. And this is a very popular passage. We've talked about this at Sunday Night Bible Study before, but this is where I want to begin in Matthew 22. Matthew 22. And if you have a Bible at your feet, you can pull it up. You can look on the screen, wherever you want to do. But Jesus he's going around, he's teaching, and he's having a lot of conflict with Pharisees. And Pharisees have a lot of power. They have the laws, and they enforce the laws, and they tell you how you should live out the laws. And Jesus has been basically doing his thing, right? And the Pharisees don't really like the way that he's living his life, the way that he is teaching his disciples, because sometimes what he does goes against seemingly their laws. And so they have conflict, they have issues, and the Pharisees are always testing and always asking questions and trying to trick Jesus. And then Jesus is asked, what is the greatest commandment? Right? Because all these commandments, 613 of them, of these laws that the Jewish people have to follow in order to be right with God. And somebody comes up, hey, what's the best? What are the most important? What is the most important law that we have to follow? And here's what Jesus said. Jesus replied. He says, you must love the Lord with all your God and with all your heart and with all your soul and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. So if you've been around church for a while, or you've been around our youth group for a while, we've definitely talked about this multiple times, right? And there's a reason why. Because it's so important. Because Jesus put such an importance on this. And he says, hey, if you get this, if you get love God and love people, then you get everything. If you get these two things, then you've got everything else. Right? And you're thinking, well, what does this have to do with power? What does this have to do with our ability to use power and authority the correct way? And it has a lot to do with that. Jesus says, love God and love people. Because really, we're going to talk about this idea of authority and love and how they work together. But here's our bottom line. I want to show you real quick right here. It says, in the upside down kingdom, power is for lifting up and not tearing down. Power is for lifting up and not tearing down. If you're going to take away something from this whole series, from tonight, whatever, this is it. This is the bottom line. This is what you should take away. Power in the upside down kingdom, power is for lifting people up and not for tearing people down. But so often in the world, it says, hey, power is all about who you can step on, who you can tear down, who you can bring down, who you're better than, who you have control over. And it's not about lifting people up. Jesus came in and he changed and he lived differently when it comes to power. Power is about lifting people up and not tearing people down. So, here's something you can take away. Another thing you can take away with this is this. Real authority is supposed to be based in love. So if you have real authority, right? Because sometimes authority is given to leaders, right? And people have authority and they use that authority for good or for bad, right? But real authority, when it comes to how Jesus set the example, right? In the way he lived, he said, "Hey, this is what you do with your authority. You have to have love. You have to have love." He said, "Love God and love people." And your authority without love is not going to cut it. In fact, this kind of explains it a little better. It says we can choose to lead with love, and we can be part of an upside down kingdom that uses power to build up and not tear down. And so this is what we want to do. And then this is what I want to see. Authority without love is just poorly used power. Authority without love is just poorly used power. If you have authority over people and you don't have love for those people, you are using your power poorly. This is so different than what the world thinks. Because the world will say, "Hey, I have the power, I have the authority. You just got to do what I say and it doesn't matter. And you're just going to suffer." Right? This is how we get dictators. This is how we get corruption. This is how we get hatred. This is how we get, this is how people die. Right? Right? And so this is some heavy stuff. When we see at the very top, when leadership does not care about love and their power and authority, it ultimately ends up with poorly used power. Because Jesus used love in everything he did. Every action he took was based in love. Ultimately, we see that when he goes to the cross and gives up his power voluntarily to die for us, right? Sacrificially. So when we look at this, and we look at authority, and we think about it, and we say authority without love is just poorly used power. Here's a powerful quote from Martin Luther King Jr., and we're going to put up here. It says this. It says, power without love is reckless and abusive. And love without power is sentimental and anemic. Right? You get that? That's pretty powerful right there. So power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. So what he's saying is, listen, if you have power but no love, you're going to cause chaos. It's going to be reckless, and you're going to abuse people. If you have love but there's no power behind it, right? He's saying, if you have love but you're not able to do anything with your love, you're just you're also not helping anyone because you're just sentimental. You're like, "Oh yeah, I love you," but if you don't do anything with your love, does that make sense? If you say, "Hey, I care about these people, I love these people, but I never do anything for them," then you're just kind of full of hot air, right? Does that make sense? You're just saying stuff. Paul kind of talks about this, right? When he says, if you have all the gifts and all the powers, but you have no love, you've got nothing. So the quote continues with Martin Luther King. It says this, power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. So this is clearly something that you can see in Scripture, right? That the idea that our power should be used for justice, right? For helping people in need, for doing what is right, right? And if we don't, and ultimately what he says, this is a great quote, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. Justice is correcting everything that stands against love. Going back to Jesus saying, listen, love God, love people. This is where it all comes to. And so, what do we do with this information? Knowing that if we want to wield our power and authority throughout our life for the best, we have to have love behind it, right? And that's how we can actually lift people up with our power and authority and not tear people down. This is something that can direct and change your life forever. Because listen, when you're in the moment and you haven't decided whether or not you're going to use your power and authority one day for good, to love people, in that moment you go, man, that status, that money, that personal benefit that I could get from just going things for me and not for the good of other people, but for me, you will abuse your power. It'll happen. If you don't decide now for the future, later one day when you'll have power, you'll abuse it. Right? And it starts today. It starts with the little things. It starts with the little authority that you may have. Right? What are you doing with the little things that you have? Right? Today, in this game we played, silly game, right? Marshmallows, noodles. But one team could make 3 rules up. Their 3 rules could have helped everybody. But their 3 rules explicitly hurt everybody else and helped them. That's a silly game. It was made to make that point, right? We knew that that's what would happen, right? Because it's a game. And there's not a lot of stakes. But the things that you're going through right now that may seem big or may seem little, they're going to determine what you do for the rest of your life. Are you going to say, hey, I'm going to do it like Jesus, and I'm going to say, I'm going to lift people up with my power and not tear people down? Or are you going to do the opposite? Because you have the ability to change people's lives, but not always for good. Sometimes you can change people's lives for bad. And this is the option that we're seeing today. So how do we do this? And how do we make sure that we can follow this through? 2 Timothy, Paul writes this. He says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline." So we have love, self-discipline, and power, right? Power, love, and self-discipline. We can do this. We can use these given to us by the Lord to do what is right, to use our power for good. So, again, the bottom line is this. In the upside-down kingdom, power is for lifting up and not for tearing down. Let me talk about something real quick. If you have, everyone knows what a hammer is, right? That's like a dumb question to even ask, right? So, yeah, exactly. No. So hammers, right? You probably have one in your house. You've probably used one before. Now, hammers are not inherently good or bad. They're just a tool, right? So a hammer, in the hands of whoever holds the hammer, like whoever's holding that hammer, determines what you do with it. So you could hold that hammer and you could smash a window, break into someone's car.
Control lightning like Thor.
You can control lightning like Thor, right? You could break things. You could destroy things. You could hurt people, right? Hammers could hurt people pretty bad. Or you could build houses, right? You'd have to have a few other tools too. But you could you could hang up like paintings on the wall by putting a little tack. Like, here's the thing. Hammers, in and of themselves, sitting on the table, sitting on a workbench, whatever, they don't do anything on their own. But once someone picks up that hammer, they now gain the power of that hammer. And what the person chooses to do with it is up to them. Are they going to use that hammer to destroy things, or are they going to use it to build things? Power and authority in your hands is the same way. Are you going to use it to lift other people up, or are you going to use it to tear other people down? So, a couple of quick application points, and then we're going to get out of here, is this. Here's some things you can do. You can use authority well for others, right? So you can choose to use authority for the benefit of others. And you should do this, right? So what I want you to do this week is think about the ways in your life that the decisions that you get to make that affect other people, how you can do those to lift other people up instead of just thinking about what's best for you. Or how could I get over somebody with this? Right? Do you have the opportunity, if you're in band, for instance, could you use your position as a first chair? Again, I did 1 year in band. My wife is much more of a band person than I am, right? But as a first chair, you could use your power and authority, where it may not be a ton, as a first chair or as a drum major or whatever. You could use that to be like, look how great I am. Or you could use that to say, hey, I'm going to take what I know and I'm going to help other people. I'm going to take, let's say you're really good in academics. Like you're a straight A student. You could take your ability to understand different subjects and you could tutor other people. You could help other people to get good grades as well, or to improve their grades. Or you could just sit there and go, I hope everyone else gets a B so I can be valedictorian. I hope they fail. I just want their GPA to go down by 1/10, just 1/10 of 1 point. Or do you go, hey, here's some people that need some help, and I can help them. Right? There's a little bit of power and authority going, I'm on my way. I'm going to get that scholarship. But you could get that scholarship, and you could help other people pass their class. God has given you talents and gifts and abilities to either help yourself or to turn that around and help other people. So in the Upside Down Kingdom, we're looking to lift other people up and not tear other people down. Jesus came and he turned it all around. So that's how you can use your authority well for others. And then here's this. You can use your authority well for yourself. Right? Use your authority, your position. This is not bad, right? But this is to go, hey, I'm going to become a better person. I'm going to become more disciplined. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the things I need to do to improve my relationships with others, to improve my relationship with the Lord. You're going to use your power and authority to help yourself, but not in a just purely selfish way, but so that you can be better, right? So it's how can you help other people? You can use your authority to help other people, and you can use your authority to help yourself, but there's a difference between helping yourself and helping yourself at the detriment to other people. How can you improve your relationship with Christ through your authority? That's something we can think about this week. So, to end all this, to wrap it all up, we have choices. We can all choose to use our authority, right? We can all choose to use any authority we have to lead ourselves well so that we can lead others well. We first have to start by leading ourselves well, to say, hey, I'm going to discipline myself to think about other people, and then I'm going to use that to lead other people well, to lift other people up. And if we start doing this, you can start to say, hey, the things that normally people go, hey, I'm just going to think about myself here. I'm just going to use my gifts, my abilities for my own well-being. No. Now, you can start to change the people at your school. You can start to change their lives, and they can start to see Jesus through you because of that. See, our faith was not meant to be one lived alone, but our faith was meant to be one that we share with other people. If you have found Christ, if you're a follower of Christ, and you're living that life and you've experienced that salvation, part of that is like, hey, now you have that and you can tell other people about that. We can take that power, that authority, that's just the benefit of us being saved by Jesus, and we can give that to other people, and we can live that out in other ways. Jesus gave us power and authority in different situations. Each one of you in your life will have power and authority in different ways. And what you do with that, what you choose to do with that authority, can either be to lift people up, it can be for the kingdom, or it can be for yourself. And today, as teenagers, I want you to start changing your mind about power and start thinking kingdom-minded, because we live in an upside-down kingdom as we follow Christ. And we can start lifting people up instead of tearing them down.